Can you hear me, Piper?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
No.
There was a little static on the line. I think it was Santa and his reindeer interfering with the signal. I'm sure.
I'm sure you're right.
At first, I thought that was Santa coming in. I saw that red, but it's just Andrew.
Rudolph.
Santa's little helper.
I guess it's your chair. You're Santa, right? Or all your reindeers?
Yeah. Well, not really. Oh,
Start the recording and you can start whenever you're ready.
okay. Thanks, Piper. So, is everybody's here that's coming, right? From the board?
As far as I know,
All right.
she's in Europe.
Okay. So, all right. Well, good evening, everybody. Happy holidays. Sorry I'm not there, but you'll soon be seeing my smiling face early this winter. We'll call to order the HARC regular board meeting of December 18th at 5:31 p.m. It's a hybrid meeting at Rebecca Hall. And if you are joining by phone, you can dial 301-715-8592. The meeting ID is 876-401-4109-1694. And our passcode tonight is 695-618. We invite you to, if you're online, to join in if you have comment at the appropriate time. The purpose of HARC is to preserve, maintain, and enhance the historic character, scale, architectural integrity, and cultural resources of the town of Telluride and the Telluride Landmark District. I will call the meeting to order with members of town council on the line. I'm not sure I see anybody from council, and from staff I see Erica, Ron, Piper, Darren, Kristen, Allie. Anyone else there from staff?
No.
Okay, very good. Staff approval of the minutes from our November 20th meeting. Do we have a motion?
We'll do a roll call first.
And we might do that to see who is left. Good idea, Kieran.
Kieran Lanham. Matt Lee.
Bob Mather.
Andrew Williamson.
And Mark Shamba. All right, thank you for coming and thanks for the reminder. So we need a motion for the meeting of November 20th.
I move to approve the HARC meeting minutes dated November 20th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, Kieran?
Kieran, yes. Matt, yes.
Bob, yes.
Andrew, yes.
And Mark, yes. I'll just go last tonight. It's appropriate. Okay. That's good. And then I will move to approve the HARC chair meeting minutes of November 22nd as written. Now, staff announcements.
Sure. Just in brief, staff looks forward to attending the Saving Places Conference, which is later in, oh, you can't hear me? Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Hello. Staff looks forward to attending the Saving Places Conference later in January. And I know we have at least one member of HARC who also plans to attend in person. And then hopefully additional staff and perhaps additional HARC members will also join in virtually. In addition, Mark and HARC, I look forward to working with our staff to plan your retreat that will take place in early 2025, and we'll send out details early in the new year. Mark and I are working on finalizing a few of the plans. And Mark, I don't know if you want to share where. I won't share that with the group without you.
Well, with Kristen's permission, one of her first 5 decisions probably, which is great. We have secured at a discount the gallery room at the old historic depot, which if you haven't been in, we'll get you a tour also that day from 8 to 12 a.m. We have it blocked off at the historic depot on the 20th of February. And again, I think Erica went out a month or 2 ago. And is the 20th still good with everyone?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so we will make it productive. You know, last year we had an abbreviated one. We had so much going on with trying to finish our design guidelines and land use code changes, et cetera, and short staff. But I look forward to it and look forward to sharing with you at that meeting. Go ahead, Kristen, if there's something else.
Sure. Only the last thing, thank you to those of you who I've had the opportunity to meet with one-on-one as I come into this new role. And I look forward to meeting with all the rest of the HARC members soon as well. I appreciate all your insights and the experiences and guidance you've been sharing as I get up to speed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. So is there any public comment on non-agenda items this evening? Non-agenda items, please raise your hand electronically if you're out there. And do we have any public in the room, Piper?
No, sir.
Oh,
Mark, do you want to do the HARC chair meeting minutes?
I did.
I was, sorry.
I did. Yep. Okay, no public comment. Then we'll go on to the first public hearing item. And Kristen, are you announcing the delay, or do you want me to, or?
I'm happy to. So
Good.
due to HARC member recusals and absences, the appeal of the HARC chair approval of 129 North Aspen has been voluntarily reset by the appellant. I would ask that you make a motion that the hearing on the appeal be continued without discussion to the January 15th, 2025 HARC meeting. Thank you.
So
Who can-
15th, right?
Yes, that is
We
correct.
have 18th on here.
It's my mistake. That's for the next item.
But the date
It's supposed to be the 15th, yes.
Okay, Bob, you want to make a motion?
Well, this would just be the same thing. The rest of the applicant, HARC, is asked to continue this item without discussion to the January 15th, 2025 HARC meeting.
Is that a motion? You have to say I move.
I move.
Okay.
Well, this is the way it's written on the pages for the second
Right.
the next project, but
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kiernan,
Kieran, yes.
Matt, yes.
Bob, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Mark, yes. It's unanimous. We'll see him on the 15th. Thank you. Okay, our next, we're not having a very good batting average. Our next public hearing item, I think we need a motion to continue this to the January 18th meeting without discussion. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll do. I move to continue the standard residence project to the January 15th, 2025 regular HARC meeting.
I'll second that.
Kiernan,
Kieran, yes.
Matt, yes.
Bob, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Andrew, yes.
and Mark, yes.
Thank you. I fell asleep.
Okay, our very last public hearing item of the evening.
Can I share the public process slide now that we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
great.
And we'll get prepared for that. And 7 minutes into the meeting, we're in our first and last public hearing. Just to remind everybody of the process. The 7 steps are: the HARC chair will introduce the project, and staff gives the presentation and answers the board's questions. The applicant gives the presentation. We ask the applicant to be 30 minutes or less, please. Public invited to make comments and on this specific project, or 3 minutes or less per person. And there is no dialogue allowed between the public, the applicants, and the HARC members. The applicant can then address any comments made by the public in a rebuttal. Public comment ends, and finally, HARC members deliberate and vote. So following that process, I'll go ahead and introduce this project as the Rosen Residence. It's a continuation from September 18th and November 20th HARC meetings. It's consideration of an application for a small-scale new construction of a principal structure in the Hillside Developing Zone District on a lot with a pre-construction grade or slope of buildings, site coverage of 25% or greater, regardless of floor area per land use code 7203B13. It's lot 18, the overlook. It's at Telluride subdivision, PUD East Telluride. It's at 744 Primrose. The zone district is Hillside Developing 2. Owner, Kenneth Rosen. Applicant, Rowan Shaw of Method Homes. Staff member, Darren Candelaria. Darren.
Great, thank you, Mark. So this is the consideration of an application for small-scale new construction of a principal structure in the Hillside Developing 2 Zone District, 744 Primrose. The project scope is new construction of a single-family residence. The proposal may look familiar as it was continued from the September 18th HARC board meeting as well as November. The lot is located on the south side of Primrose Lane in the developing Hillside treatment area. Previous conditions from the September meeting, 1 through 3, all relate to the stepping down of the structure to better blend with the natural topography and reduce the apparent mass, scale, and visibility. To address these conditions, the applicant reversed the roof slope, lowered the upper roof 10 inches, lowered the parapet wall's height, and added planters to the west and southern facades. However, the overall mass and form of the building did not change significantly enough to meet conditions. Therefore, conditions 1 through 3 are retained.
Okay. Questions?
Are you done?
No, I'm still going.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Mark. Previous conditions 4 and 5 were to reduce the amount of glazing on the southern facade and to reduce the size and groupings of the windows to be more traditional. The applicant has reduced the glazing by 16.3%, with special attention to the southern facade. HARC should discuss if these conditions have been met. Conditions 7 through 9 were to revise the proposed siding materials to be applied more traditionally with traditional dimensions and limit the use of corrugated metal on the principal structure. Wood, board, and batten are now proposed siding material for the garage and the chimney element, with the heavier materials such as the board form concrete on the foundation. Conditions 7 through 9 have been met. Condition 10 has been met with the provided details of the trash enclosure. Condition 11 was to remove duplicating light fixtures. The condition has been met with 1 step light removed in the entry, as well as 2 removed from the upper deck. Condition 12 has been met with snow storage indicated on the plans. Condition 13 has been modified to show the location of utilities on the final CA plans. Condition 14 has been met with the first and second level decks now depicted on the west and east elevations. Staff recommends adding a new condition to revise the landscaping and planters to be more natural to minimize visual impact. The proposed planters add a more ornamental appearance, affecting the visual impact of the building. A number of conditions were retained and 2 new conditions added, revolving around landscaping. While the roof form was changed and the planters were added, the overall mass and form of the building did not change significantly enough. With the fact that there are still concerns around mass and scale, staff recommends continuing the application. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Questions? Okay, you did a good job. Thank you. And we'll hear from the applicant. Is Rowan remote, I assume?
Yes, Rohan is remote.
Okay, welcome, please.
Great. Share screen.
Where's the sunshine? You must be in California.
It's a aspirational sunshine, definitely in Seattle, so very gray over here.
Okay.
Great, thank you, staff, for presenting the project. I wanted to start just by discussing the steps that we've taken to reduce the scale. We recognize the biggest obstacle to the last two HARC hearings was stepping down the building down the hillside to reduce the scale of the building to the southern exposure. In the last hearing, the board recognized that the scale of this building is not similar to the scale of other buildings that have been reviewed. This is a 1,500 square foot building, and this lot is the smallest lot in the Overlook PUD with the PUD bonus. Any additional adjustment of the footprint is going to be over the impervious area requirements that are set out by the PUD. So there's not very much room to make significant adjustments to the exterior envelope to step the building down the facade any further than it's been currently stepped. That comes from two pieces. One, from the fact that if we were to try to lower the building physically more on the lot itself, there would have to be a whole flight of stairs between the garage and the ground floor. There's already the maximum number of steps that make sense. We already have lowered the first floor relative to the street grade as much as possible, so that that the grade has been lowered relative to the streetway. For the southern facade itself, we've also tried reducing the parapet height. We've tried to use stepped planters to help, kind of reduce the scale and massing. We understand the need to create sort of natural landscaping paths on either side of the building, but we're restricted by impervious area amounts for stepping the building any further. So that's the big conflict that we're running into. The actual scale of the building itself is, like I mentioned, 1,500 square feet of space. And because it's on a severely sloped hillside lot, there isn't really much more room for us to make adjustment to that. The other items that are there beyond items 1 through 3, which are all related to that stepping down the hill face, was reducing the glazing on the southern facade, which we did by 15%. We got rid of all the sliding doors and raised the windows for both the first floor and the crawl space area below the building. We also reduced, already mentioned that, reduced the glazing in those two zones. Item 7 regarding the material hierarchy, item 7 through 14 were addressed already and recommended to be approved by staff at HARC, so I won't run through all of those to spare you guys the time, but I think the big thing is really just the capability for the project to step down the hill given the size of the lot. And you can see here, if I scroll back towards the site plan, you can see how close we are also to the setbacks as well. And then two other notes that I just had: we used the deck area, as well to try to help the building envelope appear like it's stepping down the slope. The deck area is within the constraints of the PUD requirements. So I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, that's all the items that I have on my list.
Rowan, I'm going to kick it off with a question and just get to the heart of it. Thanks for making the changes 7 through 13 that you did. Appreciate it. But we're still stuck on mass and scale and stepping the building down. Could you go to that elevation view looking from the south or southwest? I realize the deck on the southeast corner, has some breaking up of mass and scale, but let's go to the west elevation where you can see the topography. There you go. So what is in the PUD? I just want to make sure that I understand, and maybe others may have the same question, but what is in there that as Erica said, the building still does not step itself step down after we, made that a clear condition. What is preventing you from sliding that third story back and offsetting it to step down and go more with the hillside? What is preventing that? Something that you on setback?
So yeah, no, I mean we were talking about potentially extending the basement out further to create the stuff. The reason why the first floor can't get pushed back any further is this is only a 2-bedroom house that's being built here, and this is already a 10-foot bedroom, in its current condition. So if we push this building envelope back any further, this bedroom doesn't actually fit physically in the space. Like the house is really constrained in terms of size, and it's being built partially custom modular. So it's being built custom, but just in a factory and sent out in components. And so there's a physical scale restriction because of the parking requirements here, right? So we need to have this parking spot that's here on this side of the house, and we can't really pull this essentially leg of the bedroom, this building back any further. Otherwise, this won't be a conforming bedroom anymore.
Okay.
We've already.
I mean, it's a very modest bedroom, 10 feet, not complaining about that. It's just that if it did go back into the hillside, you're just saying then the parking has to go back and it gets too low to be accessed.
Yeah, so there's actually a height difference. So in order to try to help the building step down the physical hillside, we've already lowered this whole ground floor relative to the grade of the driveway. You already go down a half flight of steps just to get to the front door of the house. And that was done in accommodation of trying to make sure that the house kind of steps down the hill. But the depth of this garage can't get really any shallower. Is that sort of the question? Is can we make the garage less shallow to be able to push the building envelope back?
Well, I'm just trying to get by the condition, which is so clear in the guidelines that the house must step down, and it doesn't. And so I'm trying to help you get through this and saying, well, what else could you do?
I understand. I mean, the house is literally stepping down physically from the inside of the house. I understand your point. I mean, the other thing that we can physically do is we can add to the cladding of the downstairs element to create sort of a thickening of this lower volume. That's really the only other thing that I can think of that we could do to sort of create the appearance of us stepping down the facade. We're only allowed 1,400 square feet of impervious, 1,488 square feet of impervious area, I believe. So that's really what keeps us from popping, these walls out a little bit further to create the appearance of it stepping down the hill. We did try to break the materials up too, so that you didn't have like a single wall of a material that was 2 stories tall in this location. The only other thing that I can think of is we could put a retaining wall in, over here, and we can artificially fill more soil on this side so that it doesn't appear. And that's sort of what the planters were trying to do, is the planters were trying to show it fill, but we can actually physically fill this area with soil so that this is more embedded. And we can do that on both sides of the house, if that makes sense.
Did you
Okay, I'm
show
gonna let
the top level floor? I'm sorry, Mark, if you want to keep going.
No, I want to let others speak. So Bob, you go ahead, and I'm sure we're all
Could you
going to
show
talk.
the floor plan for the very top level? Show the entire, okay. Is it possible that could move back? That whole element to push it back, and then you have a stepping from the you have the first and second level, and the third level would be further step back. So you do have that sense of stepping down the hill. Agrees with that would help or not, but just
no,
a possibility.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I mean, I'm trying to, we're definitely trying to keep the building from having too many steps in the facade, like vertical steps, if that makes sense, not horizontal steps. The thing that's dictating where this line is the end of the stair that's here. It's exactly 3 feet, like the minimum landing height at the top of the stair. And if we turn the stair and have steps this way, which we looked into to pull this facade back, then all of a sudden the usable space of this hallway is gone because you're below the minimum head height that you need for a ceiling over there. So we had even looked into like, you know, putting a landing here and having 3 steps, you know, kind of go this way. Does that make sense? In order to be able to pull this back, you know, and pull upstairs back, which, you know, exposes this condition more to the elements, of course. But if I go back to the southern facade, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So essentially, the other thing, if I can find out the 3D view, we'd also talked about, well, what happens if we just step back this zone right here, because that's not in the bedroom. What if we physically pulled this back and there was a return there? Would that be enough for HARC? You know, if there was essentially a bigger reveal in between these two, it doesn't feel like that really impacts the sensation of it stepping down the grade when the grade is here, right? You know, something that's happening in the center didn't feel like it made a difference. So, and I mean, of course, we could like expand the deck out because technically by code, we're still allowed to, you know, have the deck continue out over here. So we could expand the deck and then it would look like it was, I mean, I don't know. It's arguable to say that the deck feels like it's stepping down the hill any more than the house does, you know, but theoretically we could extend this deck around the side of the house and, you know, you would have a break in the building envelope. Does that make sense? If I go back to the west elevation. So like if we did the same thing here, we would be increasing the scale of the house, you know, but it would still be in accordance with the PUD requirements. Do something like this. Because I think part of it is the fact that you're reading, you know, a wall that's this tall, right? When you're looking up at it from the southern facade. I just think that like that doesn't really accomplish like it may accomplish it, you know, clinically, but physically, I feel like the best way to accomplish that is to adjust the grade physically up and kind of make it feel like it's more buried in the hill. If that makes sense.
Okay, who else wants to ask questions or probe this? I mean, we've continued it twice. It's time to, I think, add a little more specificity. We're not supposed to design it, but I mean, somehow we've got to come up with some ideas or help the applicant come up with some ideas. So maybe your questions, I mean, he's just thrown out 2 things, you know, change the grade to kind of artificially make it look like it, you know, follows the topography better, which might comply, and then or extending the deck out. Those are 2 ideas, but are there other questions either about that or any other ideas since we're stuck?
I don't have any questions, Mark, but I've got a fair amount of commentary once we get to deliberations.
Okay, but about this, and yeah, we can get deliberations, but I don't want to lose the applicant before we give him a chance to, you know, comment on any other questions that we have that we might ask ourselves during deliberations regarding the slope, you know, the stepping down. Let's at least try to get by that, and then we'll move on, as you said, to some other issues.
Sure. I mean, I guess I can comment on the applicant's idea of altering the grade as he's sort of shown. I think that's often a useful technique as long as we don't get into a zone where the grading feels unnatural. So, you know, grading is not a perfect slope. There's undulation. So I think there's some latitude there to bring the grade up to help bury the project in the hillside more without it seeming artificial. So I think that's a good technique to use. I don't think that single method will resolve the stepping issues that we have. I think predominantly they're at this southwest corner we're looking at, and to some degree also from the west.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's still, it's not stepping enough.
Yeah, I appreciate this is a small lot, and that you're working, trying to get as much square footage as constrained site. I understand you're trying to work from a modular system. Unfortunately, the design guidelines weren't written with modularity in mind. And I don't think we should really bend our guidelines to fit the construction methodology. You know, I don't really want to get in this dialogue, but does that second bedroom have to be on the main level? Can it move to the basement? I think you're maybe locking yourself up into some space planning and programming ideas and not taking into consideration the mass and scale, which is very important to this board. That's kind of how I feel about it, the big picture.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well said. I agree with what Matt said.
Me too.
I mean, I think
All right.
Darren's conditions are kind of perfect for this. I don't want to talk anymore unless we're moving into deliberations, but
Now, just questions, and if there are no more questions, or if the applicant wants to respond to any of this now before we lose you, well, public comment and then deliberations, that's going to be continued.
I would like to respond if there's if it's that fifth segment of the process for me to
Yeah,
respond
no,
real quick.
to these questions, yeah, please, yeah, throw out whatever ideas you have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely hear the board just in terms of the guidelines that are there. I mean, the PUD, and I'm not trying to use the PUD or the lot size as an excuse for any of the decision making that's there, but this lot, I wish I could demonstrate the volume constraints and the area constraints more aptly to show why we made the decisions we did. Like you said, you know, if we bury the house into the hillside, then sure, yeah, it would step down the hill. But every other house in the neighborhood is a 2-story house that's there, and this is by far the smallest house by footprint, you know, in the neighborhood. The only solution that, like, it appears to me that is available according to HARC is not having a second story, because the modularity isn't what's constraining the actual physical design as much as the impervious area and volume calcs are. And by both of those, we're just conformant within code because of the way that the hill steps. So I just want to know, like, clearly if the direction is that we can't build a second story, or if the direction is that we should go back to the drawing board in terms of this house stepping down the hill and the southwest facade is the only point of concern. Then we can look into trying to redesign this building even more to constrain to that. To me, the northwest side is, you know, double the height. The second story that's there is the side that looks like it's stepping down. And the reason why it looks like it's stepping down is because of the deck. If it wasn't for this deck here, I think you guys would feel the same way about the northwest corner as you do from the southwest corner. So I guess my question to the board would be, would an extension of the deck, you know, would the solution that was used on the northwest corner be sufficient for the southwest corner? If it's not, then we'll have to find an approach that the board wants. I just would like direction relative to that.
Okay, we'll discuss that in deliberations, but thank you for responding. And if you have nothing else to say, we'll hear from the public.
Thank you.
Any public comment? If you're out there electronically, please raise your hand. Piper, I don't see anybody, so we'll move on to deliberations. I guess I'd ask the board, well, I think, Kieran, I haven't heard from you, but I assume that we all agree with 1 through 3, this mass and scale and stepping down the hill. I guess my questions would be during deliberations. Do we concur that, so we get some feedback here in this motion, that, you know, artificially just adjusting the grade by itself is not enough? That's what Matt said, and I would concur. And well, let's just take a straw poll. By itself, do we believe that's not enough? Just real quick, start with Kieran and just yes or no.
I'm gonna do my usual thing that I can't really judge it till I see it.
Okay,
So
that's fair. That's fair.
No, I don't think, I think raising the grade where appropriate, it would be a good technique to employ, but I don't think that's enough.
I agree with Matt.
Same, I'm on board with the rest.
Okay. And then what about this extending of the deck? And are we okay with the southeast and east facade because that deck breaks up the plane? And if so, what would we in our deliberations just talk about so the applicant might get any ideas on extending the deck out in front of this western section?
Well, you still have a very tall mass on, this is the east, on the east elevation.
Well, I asked about the east if everybody was okay because it's broken up by a deck, but we've been talking about the southwest corner. But Bob, go ahead.
I'm not sure the deck is enough on that side either. I think
Oh,
they need to look at the whole mass and scale of this building
okay.
and step it so that we're not just having these huge planes of wall.
yeah, I think we've talked about that in the past as well, that there has to be a break in wall plane in order for stepping to really occur.
Mm-hmm.
You're
I
correct.
agree with Kieran and Bob. I think the deck helps, but it doesn't resolve the issue. I think personally, I think the planners are the absolute wrong direction. They look very additive. They don't feel like a part of the house or part of the landscape. And I would holistically remove that option and employ a technique that's much more grounded to the landscape or expanding the building footprint out into the landscape. I think a smaller deck in combination with a building step back on the southwest corner could help, but I don't think expanding that entire deck. I mean, we're already looking at a pretty large deck. That might be something that we would comment in one of the final rounds, whether or not that's an appropriate size or we think we should ask for it to be reduced. I'll kind of keep going, if that's okay, Mark.
Keep going. Yep.
The building is tight to the setback, but it's not pushing against the edges. So I think there's some opportunity there to push and pull inches or feet in order to allow them a little more room to juggle the mass up. I think a significant step on the southeast corner is appropriate, whether it's, for instance, taking that whole bedroom space and making it a void or a deck. Or sort of a parapet terrace area, or having the underside step from the main level by, a foot to 2 feet on both sides. Kind of look and see if get some nodding about that or not. And some stepping to, sorry, I meant southwest side, not southeast side. Some stepping to the east, as Bob has suggested. I don't know what the solution is there. I think there's still a more holistic shuffling of this massing for it to be compliant. I don't think we're close.
Right. I think it's take another look.
Yes.
Okay. And do you have other comments, Matt,
I
on height?
think so. Let me just make sure they were appropriate. I think reinstating conditions number 4 and 5 could be appropriate about the glazing, but I don't know if it's worth talking about that at this stage, since I think the massing still needs significant work.
I would add those and possibly even 6, which was just typically about the doors 2/3 light.
Yes.
It's shown that way now, which is fine. We don't necessarily need to add it now, but yes, definitely 4 and 5 would become 6 and 7.
Those are my overall thoughts.
Okay. making notes. Bob,
Um,
the 16% reduction in glazing, what you're saying is not quite enough.
Right. There's still a lot of glazing on there.
I mean,
That could be
it's
reduced.
not,
I mean, almost the entire south facade is filled with glass.
yeah. And
Mark, I got one more comment I didn't bring up.
Yep.
If you go to the height diagram sheet, it looks like we're really pressing up on the 31-foot height limit. So I think I would also suggest that there's a further height reduction with the project. I think continuing to nestle it down into the hillside would be beneficial.
okay. And is that going to tie into one of the previous conditions of 18 or SL1, or is there a new condition or a new guideline for reducing the height?
I think it could just fall under number 1.
Yeah, okay. All right, and number 1. Okay, and so I think it's clear that planners don't do it. By itself, just artificially adjusting the grade doesn't do it. And I don't know how we feel about the deck, but kind of like Kieran said, and same with me, Kieran, I think I'd need to see it and then maybe take it out, like this is not a work session next time, but it is the third time on a small, and we'll only see this, one time and then approve it. But I guess the bottom line is there has to be a break in the wall plane. I mean, that's what we've said, and that's what the guidelines say. It's not what we want, but it's what the guidelines require us to do. And so with that, we have 1 through 5. I hear a call to reinsert the old number 6 and 7 related to fenestration, and then we have an 8, which might be combined into number 1 with reducing the height.
Sorry, Mark. That's the windows are number 4 and 5.
I'm sorry, which would become the new 6 and 7.
Correct.
And then number 8 might be, or unless 8 wants to be wound into number 1 by whoever's making the motion, reducing the height to further nestle this down into the hillside. So are we ready?
I am. I'm fine with those conditions you outlined.
Okay, then we're ready. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry.
Volunteer, buddy.
Oh,
I didn't write them down, but I can give it a shot. You want me to?
sure.
I move to continue to let's talk about a date.
Is it with the holidays and everything is
I think
15th enough time?
No,
to
I
get it right?
I don't think so.
I'd say February.
I agree. And plus, we've done this twice. We got to get it right this time.
Okay. I move to continue to the February 19th, 2025 HARC meeting, the small scale new construction at 744 Primrose Lane, Lot 18, the overlook at Telluride Subdivision PUD, East Telluride Addition, based on the staff memo dated December 18th, 2024, with the following conditions 1 through 5 as stated. Number 6, reinstate the previous conditions, number 4 and 5, from the September 18th HARC meeting. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on December 18th, 2024, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Okay, so before we
Hold up a second.
Yep.
Ideally, it would be great to read those conditions
Okay.
if you have access to them.
I do. How would you like me to?
So just, there hasn't been a second, so you can just modify it and.
Yeah. The new number 6 and the new number 7 being the old 4 and 5, but read them. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna modify my condition to strike my previous proposed condition number 6 and restate condition number 6 to be reduce the amount of glazing on the southern facade per ES 2B1 and ES 3A3. And to add condition number 7, reduce the size and grouping of the windows to be more traditional and relate to the pedestrian scale per DH number 25A, B, and D.
And we had talked of a number 8, reducing the height of the building to nestle it further down the hillside. Do we want to have that stand alone or modify number 1?
I can add a condition 8.
Okay,
Step down the building height per DH 18, 2A, and 4.
okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll look for a second.
I will second.
Okay, Kieran,
Kiernan, yes.
Matt, yes.
Bob, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Mark, yes. All right, Rowan, let's hopefully we can finish next time, and we wish you well. Thank you. Okay. We have a work session this evening. It's lots 7 and 8 on San Juan's duplexes. Consideration of application for work session. A new construction pursuant to Land Use Code 201C. It's lot 7 and lot 8, San Juan Village, PUD Block 20, West Telluride. Accommodations to, in the plat book is page 120043, recording 5/1/96, and the decks recorded in book 561, page 135, 5.1.96, and the correction plat, book 1, page 2122. Address is TBD. Accommodations to district. Owner, Langmaid Family Revocable Trust and Langmaid Laurel Diane T. Langmaid Laurel 54 Trust. Applicant Ron Berkowitz. Staff member Darren Candelera. Darren?
I'm actually going to be presenting this one tonight, so
Okay.
thank
All
you.
right.
So we're here for a work session for lots 7 and 8, San Juan Village. It is located in the accommodations to zone district, the accommodations treatment area, and is located outside the historic district. The lot is located not directly across, but across from Clark's Market, and the turf field for the high school is behind these 2 lots. Per a work session, HARC is requested to provide general feedback on the options presented. And just as a reminder, a work session is not intended to vest the applicant or the public with any reliance as to the outcome of the formal development review process. And I am happy to answer any questions before we hear from the applicant.
Erica, my one question was, what are the setbacks in the context of the neighborhood here across the street at Carhens that we work so liberal, purposefully?
At Canyonlands and Tower
Yeah.
House, yes.
Yeah.
So Canyonlands East is set back about 6 feet. And this is from the property line, so there is a right of way on both sides of the street of Colorado Avenue. So Canyonlands East is set back about 6 feet. Canyonlands Northwest varies from about 20 to 26 feet. And the Tower House condos varies about 9 to 10 feet. And then I did do some not exact measurements of the Hotel Telluride, and on that southwest corner, it appears to be set back about 25 to 30 feet, but that is just a rough estimate from the assessor's website.
And that's off the property line, not the street.
Off the property line, yes.
And so if we say Northwest Canyonlands, which is like right across the street from this, was 20 to 26 feet off of the property line, just about how far is that off Colorado? I'm thinking of the view corridor and the sensitivity of this entrance to town as we rewrote the guidelines to address this with more sensitivity. About how far off Colorado Somehow I thought that was almost 40 feet off Colorado, but it's at least 35 feet, right?
Yes, because you have the pedestrian path and landscaped area, so I can't give exact measurements, but if Canyonlands, if it's 26 feet to the property line, it's at least 30 feet to Colorado Avenue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, that's the only question I had, but other board questions? Okay. Well, let's hear from the applicant. I commend you for doing a work session, Ron, and to get the feedback in a more informal back and forth basis. So please share your screen and you have the floor.
Yeah, let me try to get things rolling here.
Mr. Berkovitz, if you could please speak into your microphone.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't moved. You'll just have to get closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, how's that?
And identify yourself again.
Okay, Ron Berkovitz from Berkovitz Design. Let's see. So really, I'm here tonight just to kind of get an endorsement of that we're headed on the right direction here, or if not, that there's specific comments that will get us pointed in the right direction. This is a most unusual, and let me go ahead and try to share this. I'm trying to multitask here. Let's see, Zoom, share screen. Okay, nice and big. Okay. So let me just kind of start out showing you the context here. You know where we're at on this side of town as you enter across the street from Clark's Market. Different zoning districts. We're in the accommodations zoning district. So we're this shows the historic district boundary. So we're clearly outside of the historic district and not very close at all to any historic structures. And you can see these lots are better shown. Let me go to this. So this the green circled area is the San Juan Village PUD that was done in the late 90s. I was actually involved in it as a consulting architect and developed some of the standards. And I'll say that these two lots are kind of the leftovers and maybe the leftovers of the entire town. So they're very odd shaped and very odd placed. Next to the ball field, close to the school, across the street from Clark's, smack up next to the hotel. So it's an unusual beast. And when this was platted, they clearly saw these lots as transitional lots. So it's the let's see if it does this. Yeah, so left two lots. Far end lots, they're the transitional lots to the much taller and more dense lots. The hotels on lots 9 through 12 here, and then on this side of Cornett Street are 35-foot tall, single structures that are supposed to emulate oversized homes within the district. Here's the survey. The access is not from Colorado Avenue. So it's through the little alleyway in front of the hotel. So access and parking and all that's a real challenge. Okay, here's our site plan. And initially we kind of came out saying, well, let's just do one big building for 4 townhouse units and go through a PUD process where we get rid of the lot line and do one bigger building. And then we started to look at the complexities of redoing the PUD and the advantages of coming in just with 2 duplexes, and it made a lot of sense to do that. So you can see the bike path here. We're right on the far side of the bike path. And the ball fields are directly to the north. So circulation wise, we're coming off the little alley off the in front of the hotel, and we're going down like a half a level into each of the two buildings. So this will be technically two, I think it'll end up being two applications because it's a lot 7. Technically, it's a duplex, not a single family or a multifamily on each of 2 lots. Okay, so here's the site. You can see the left, and when you look at it, you're like, can 2 buildings really fit in there? So yeah, they can. So so yeah, this is, I mean, it's called Cornet Lane. I call it an alley. The dumpsters in there, the underground parking for the hotel to the right, and all the utilities for the gold, whatever that's called, the Gold Dust building on the left side. So here's a better picture of the open lot, the two lots together. And so here is the photo montage, an attempted photo montage. It should be pretty close, but it's not accurate. That shows the 2 buildings. And the intention here is to give it more of a kind of a townhouse feel, where it's a group of buildings that are part of the same family, not simply like 3 separate single family structures, but at the same time trying to differentiate. So on this view, you can see where we've got 2 garages underneath each building going down about a half a level. And here's another photo montage. So you can see the road here, and that's the bike lane, and then set back from there to the house, to the building itself, which is, all the way to the edge of the building is fairly substantial. I don't know the true number on that. Different view from the southwest. And we're contemplating the use of brick on this. So it gives a nice sturdy appearance and dressy appearance and quality. There's brick on the school and brick throughout the town. And then the other thing I just wanted to kind of underscore is what we're trying to do is do a roof form that emulates the typical roof form found in the historic district, the north-south ridge, the fairly narrow mass, in the 15 to 19 foot range. 12-12 pitch, and the use of porches and 1-story elements, and a variation of window types. There's a kind of a aerial isometric view. Another one for the other direction. This is the backside from the ball field, looking back at the two buildings. So this shows you in plan how the units are set up. So on the left lot here, we have kind of a left and right unit. And then on the right hand lot, lot 8, you've got a unit in front and a rear unit. Elevations of the westerly lot 7, lot 8, easterly building elevations, and streetscape. So yeah, you can clearly see we're dictated. The hotel has a 35-foot height limitation. Lot 8 on the right side steps down to 30, and then lot 7 we're limited to 25 feet, which is the standard height in the historic residential area. Reviews. Okay, so the one kind of gnarly issue we're dealing with is, okay, this was the original chart, which is cryptic at best. And lot 7 is here. It's listed as a one family use by right. Okay, we can do that, but then it also says the number of dwellings is 3, or you could just do a single family house on that lot in that neighborhood, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and then, so on lot 7, we comply, we've got 2 units as a duplex on that. On lot 8, it actually says that the minimum number of dwelling units is 3, as opposed to the 2 that we have, and the maximum is 4. So, I mean, this may force us to go to P and Z to get this chart readjusted. You know, maybe there's a streamlined way of looking at it, but I wanted to point out that if you take the sum of the minimum number of dwelling units for the 2 lots, 1 and 3 is 4 units, and we have 2 and 2, so we do match the minimum number of dwelling units as a sum. Let's see, this was part of the original PUD, and it's just, you can see the footprint of, there was a gas station. I don't know how many of you were around Telluride back in the late 90s, but there was what we called the Triangle gas station. And that's where that was located, just to the west, to the east of lot 7 and lot 8. So let's see, I think that's about all I have here. I'll be glad to answer any questions as you get into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to start? Get it's informal. We can talk about design ideas. Doesn't just have to be questions, but go
I've
ahead.
got a few if you want to start.
Okay, Bob.
First is a question. On the north side of the building, there's that dirt, what does it say, dirt and gravel path. And it appears that there's some elements of the design that are encroaching into that. Is that like a easement space?
You know,
across the property?
it's actually described in that cryptic chart, and my interpretation from the chart is that you are allowed to do elements. You're not allowed to do the building itself in there, but HARC is allowed to approve elements in that space.
So what are you
Yeah.
proposing? Just a paved area?
It's just like patio terrace areas and the balcony.
But they're above
They're above the
grade of the,
right. Yeah, and those terraces should actually be flushing out with the grade.
okay. It just looked kind of funny to me that they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
encroaching
no, I
into the
agree.
pathway, and it's not a very big pathway.
Let me see if I can find
But-
the,
Something you need to maybe double check.
Seems like there should be a
yeah, you can see
distinguishable
here.
separation between the public and private space there. Does
Yeah,
it
but
maybe
it's
have-
going across their property line though. That's the problem. Anywhere else, I would think you'd have an easement across there that you couldn't encroach in, but
There's something that says the 8-foot pedestrian easement. Can't tell what it's referencing, but or what it's dimensioning to.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's quirky looking here, and we'll be careful to look into that more carefully. And I like the idea of creating a separation, a clear separation between the pedestrian area and the little terraces, if they're
Okay. I have
they're
some more if
clearly allowed.
you want.
Go ahead.
One thing, I realize that the access to these are kind of contrary to what we would normally see. You want the garages in the back and obviously these are going to be in the front. I think on lot 7 with that deck over top of the garage door helps to minimize the visual impact of that. And I'm wondering if you might think about doing the same thing on lot 8 or something similar or whatever it is, you know, to minimize the impact of seeing the garage door.
Mhm,
You
okay.
know, dropping it down helps. And like I say, on lot 7, it's in particular, it does help having that deck over there. And then the big one, I think the third levels should be stepped back on both the north and south elevations.
Yep. As we-
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, as we just, on the last case, you overheard, there must be a wall plane break. A deck alone is not enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to. try to share something else out here. Okay.
We're talking about the loft space on units A and B, the farthest west and center, and then also on unit C.
I don't think
I
it
just
has to
wanted
be
to-
huge, but I think there needs to be some break in those planes.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, showing you the context of the other buildings in the PUD. And I'm seeing that. Maybe not the one on the left there, so. Okay,
And then two simple ones. I think just take a look at the amount of glazing on the north and south elevations. I think that could be reduced. And the when we worked on the property across the street, we were very particular about the landscaping and having lots of trees to break down the scale. And I know this is very preliminary drawings, but I think continuing that, if you go back to that photo you had showing the buildings imposed on the property.
yeah. This one
No,
here?
no, it's the photo or the,
Montage.
yeah. You can see how heavy the landscaping is to the right in front of the hotel. I think continuing that as much as you can. I know you don't have as much space to deal with, but I'd maximize the landscape
Okay.
along there to help reduce the impact. And you can see how it would continue all along there.
Right. Yep, I agree.
That's my comment.
I'll jump in. Mark?
Yep.
I think, to me, I kind of think like the elephant in the room is providing that buffer and green space to Colorado Avenue. It's a topic that we sort of battled with the developers of the town's affordable housing project across the street on pretty much every project. I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission feels like, but it seems to me that the building on lot 7 is encroaching significantly on that needed sort of green space and breathing room. And kind of looking at that, my first thoughts were, would you go to P&Z to amend the PUD to sort of move that lot line in between? So you almost flip the amount of square footage, so you get the bigger building next to Hotel Telluride, maybe more appropriate as it steps up in scale. And there could be a smaller building that's pushed further back north on the lot, on lot 7. To me, I think that move could allow this project and this development to fit in, give the buffer space required to Colorado Avenue, and also step up to Hotel Telluride. I do have a note about stepping on the 3rd level. I maybe don't feel as strongly as Bob does about the stepping, except for that southwest corner of that building. It's really close to the bike path. Recognize it's a challenging lot, recognize that access is challenging. I think the driveway and the garage approaches are appropriate. That's a tough situation. I'm sort of not sure. I think your approach to keeping the materiality and the massing generally the same is probably right. I know we talked about this a lot across the street. I maybe would push for make them a little bit more different than each other.
Mhm.
but I'm not positive about that. I mean, it sort of fits in with the hotel and the school, that side of the street, especially the brick and the simple structures. So I don't know what the right direction there.
I think maybe simple changes, maybe not even, maybe they're same colors, but maybe it's a different balcony railings or
Yeah.
something. Just some detail
Different.
might do a little differently
Agree.
on one of those, on those.
So, I mean, those are my primary thoughts. I think it's that buffer space that's highlighted in the design guidelines that I have the biggest issue with lot 7, especially that southwest corner of lot 7. I think, lot 8 fits in great. I don't see any really issues. I don't have any issues with the heights that you're proposing, given that you've got these steep pitch roofs and they're appropriate dormers and appropriate sort of pedestrian scale.
For the context of Canyonlands that was across the street, to Bob's point, asking for that upper level to be set back, we were pretty hard on them to setting that back as well, right?
Mhm.
So that it wasn't all that super tall plane right when you're coming into the town's view corridor. So, I mean, Matt was kind of saying he was in agreement with the Southwest, but I'm also kind of in agreement with Bob too on the one that's on the east side, stepping back to third level, like the fourth.
Fourth level.
I don't disagree. It could help. I just think the scale of these projects is more appropriate. It's more successful than what we were seeing over across the street. We're dealing with generally larger buildings and it's harder to break it up.
Mhm.
Don't
Something to
disagree
take
that
a look
it
at.
is set back.
Yeah.
Kieran, any other comments or concurrence?
Yeah, the guidelines speak to adding the more pronounced 1 and 2-story elements to kind of ground the massing a little bit more. And that could help with the stepping down and things of that nature. I do think that third floors should be set back. And then looking at the east elevation in particular, you got some pretty massive dormers in there. Might want to shrink up those a little bit. Same deal, a lot of glazing, some big expanses of glass. But yeah, generally concurrence with Bob and Matt, Andrew.
Okay, Ron, I'll summarize the 7 points here in a minute, but I'm just gonna weigh in on, as Matt said, the elephant in the room. I don't think I could vote for a property that was on lot 7 that was closer than 20 feet from the property line, being that we were 20 to 26 feet across the street. And I think part of the solution to that is, Matt, we're not here to design it, but this is a suggestion you may consider the larger building butted up against the hotel. I don't think there's room, the way this is assigned, there's not room for a duplex in lot 7, because right there, I mean, to get 20 feet off that property line, it's just gonna cut that unit 7 significantly. And maybe you can get more square footage than the other one, but that's not our business. But I couldn't vote for something less than 20 feet off the property line.
Off the property line or off the street?
Well, property line,
Because the property line is set back like 25 feet from the edge of the street. So we're 25 feet and then another 20 feet.
oh, I see, never mind, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, okay,
yes, the property line was intentionally set back when they replatted this.
yeah. Well, I would say this, okay, stand corrected on, so it could be how many feet from the street? Well, as it's proposed, maybe how many feet
What?
is the house?
Yeah, I can calc that, but I think what I'm thinking is that we compare it to what was approved across the street. If that was 35 feet, then kind of start from that and take a look at that.
So right now, how many feet is it off of there?
I think it's about 30 to 40 feet, 35 maybe.
On that corner of the unit on lot 7?
You can't see the screen here. Maybe I can do this.
He has a screen on his screen.
Cursor.
I'm looking at the screen, yeah.
sorry. So from this corner here, not the porch, but the corner, the hard corner of the building to the street. I mean, that's a 10-foot wide bike path. So I think that's, in the 35-foot range where it's at right now. But
Well, I think I'll just stand by that. I think something needs to come off of that corner. Won't specify the number of feet further back, but maybe you can gain some more next to the hotel, and I concur with those statements. So, I mean, the summary I have is maximize the landscaping as for what we approved across the street. Top floor setbacks with change in wall plane, north and south. Fenestration reduction, more public space or break in the public space from the private space. The further buffer from Colorado on that southwest corner, lot 7, however you accomplish that. And some simple changes. I agree. I think the somewhat conformity of these three and the rhythm of the hotel, I mean, it's already there, but I agree some different detail would be helpful. And then, reducing, I think Kieran hit on, that was the only one that hit on, but smaller dormer sizes, I think would be helpful with mass and scale at this sensitive entry.
Especially there.
Yeah. Especially at this sensitive area. So those are the comments. Do you have any questions about those comments?
no, I'm pretty clear. And I appreciate your comments and
Mark,
overall.
did you include my comment about the minimizing the impact of the garage on lot 8?
No, please repeat that to Ron, just to summarize. Sorry.
I had it written out. Minimize the impact of the lower level garage doors, in particular, lot 8. Screening them somehow with a deck or whatever, how, it's up to you how you want to deal with it, but I think minimize the impact of visual impact of the garage. Because we normally don't have those on the front, particularly right on Colorado.
Good point.
The ones next to it, is that enough stepping down forward though to have those vertical?
Well, I think it's got a deck over it, so that's going to be in shade. It's going to be.
What I'm talking about, but above that, looking up, are the two decks stacked on top of each other?
Oh, I don't think that's a problem. And they're going to look at stepping this whole thing back anyway. But maybe something.
Does anyone else have any comments about the heights that Ron has proposed? I mean, I think they're appropriate.
Yeah. It does
20
step down.
Yeah.
25 feet. I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, public comment. Is there any?
Remind them to raise their hands, Mark.
Please, yeah, if you're out there electronically, which I see a couple people, raise your hand if you're wanting to speak to this project. I don't see anybody. Okay. Well, before we adjourn, just a reminder, the 20th, 8 to noon, Historic Depot Building. Please put it on your calendars and we'll try to make it very worthwhile. We'll get some of your feedback before the meeting on some topics, but Kristen and I have talked about some topics, and we'll commiserate a little further. But if you have any suggested topics that you want, please get your input to Kristen. And I think we'll formally adjourn, and then I want to say something off the record. We will adjourn at 6:48 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you for your service this year. And my off the record comment is just simply happy holidays. You don't know how much I miss being there. I wish I was there and we could go out and have some Christmas cheer tonight, but I'm sorry. And I look forward to getting back to life in Telluride. And although you won't find this book on the shelf of the museum, because it's not from the period of significance, it's from a significant period. It's available on Amazon now as of last Friday. Survival in the Year Over Germany, a World War II Miracle Remembered. I'm not trying to retire on this book, but anyway, enjoy it if you have interest. All right, listen, happy holidays to all. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.